think that the right wing is bringing out their big guns.
We will do whatever is necessary.
Every mean, nasty trick in the book.
Where do you stand? Do you stand with those people, or do you stand with us? Jay Marvin.
Jay Marvin.
This is the Jay Marvin Show.
Jay Marvin Show.
Hey, Jay
Marvin.
This is the Jay Marvin Show on AM760 Progressive Talk.
807, it's after 8, AM760 Progressive Talk. Scientology is a very, very controversial religion. My experience with it is that I once worked in Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Clearwater, Florida is right near there, and I would battle with Scientologists on the phones all the time. I don't see how this could ever be a legitimate religion that is churned up by a guy who used to write fiction novels. But Tony Ortega is with the Village Voice, and he's got an exclusive interview with a Hollywood star who has decided that he's had enough of Scientology. And let's go to Tony. And Tony, good morning, and thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, my pleasure.
All right, first of all, describe who this guy is.
Well, first of all, I want to say you were down there in the belly of the beast, sounds like.
Oh, I used to fight with them all the time, and they, and I mean, wearing these cadet uniforms and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, come on.
Yeah, the Sea Org. Well, I've been writing about Scientology for 13 years, and I was with one of our papers in Los Angeles, which is the other headquarters, and now I'm the editor of the Village Voice. But I've never come across something like this. This, you have to understand, in the world of those of us journalists that cover Scientology, this is huge news. Now, I know Jason Begay is not the biggest star, and he's the first one to admit that. He's one of these guys, as he says, always gets work. He's been in G.I. Jane, Monkey Shines. He's been in a lot of different TV series, CSI New York. The last thing he did was this short-lived series with Jimmy Smits called Kane. The guy always finds work. He's a constant character actor on television, and for the last 12 years, he's been one of these celebrities that Scientology covets. They have this celebrity center in they have celebrity centers in every city, in North America, and they do everything they can to attract TV and movie stars into their religion. And you know the role. I mean, Travolta and Cruz and all these people. Well, this was one of their stars that we don't hear about so much, but inside Scientology, he was considered one of their greatest success stories. Because, Jason really explained some very interesting things to me. He was telling me that, we hear a lot about these stars, like, say, somebody like Tom Cruise, but actually they're not all very active in the church. And this is the first time I think I'd heard it, I don't think anybody had heard this, that he says that Tom Cruise is actually virtually out of Scientology for about 10 years. And only recently did David Miscavige, the leader of the organization, convince Tom to come back in and be more active. Well, Jason was explaining that he was one of the most active actors right from the beginning, and he rocketed up what's called the bridge. And for your listeners that don't know, what makes Scientology so unique, what I've always written about, what sets them apart and really makes the big question about whether they're a legitimate religion or not, is that any other religion on earth will tell you right up front what they're about, right? You walk into a Catholic church, they'll just tell you what they believe. You go to a Jewish synagogue, here's what we believe. Scientology requires you to get about $100,000 into their training before they begin to tell you the basic beliefs.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now, what other religion would charge you $100,000 to get a look at a Bible?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and that's why for the first 29 years of Scientology's existence, the U.S. government did not consider it a religion and did not give it tax-exempt status. One of the holy grails of Scientology reporting, what all of us are still chasing after, is how in 1993 this profit-minded organization somehow convinced the Clinton administration to make it tax-exempt. That's still a head-scratcher. So today it doesn't pay taxes. But so Begay rockets up this organization, and after 12 years he's had enough. He wants to get out. And unlike other TV actors and movie stars who leave and then stay quiet about it, he decided he wanted to speak out, and that's what makes him so unique. He's the first of the celebrities that this religion covets to come out and say it doesn't work, it's a ripoff, and he's denouncing it in the strongest terms, which you can see in the video he put on YouTube, in the interview he did with us in Village Voice. It's really a unique situation.
How does he talk about this stuff like this monitoring that they're supposed to go through, and these thetas and Xeons and all this other stuff?
There are actually very few people that get to as high a level as he was in. One time when I was at the Celebrity Center in Los Angeles talking to one of their spokespeople, she admitted to me that only 10% of all people in Scientology have even attained that level where they become what's called a clear, where they get the full story about the fact that this whole religion is based on the idea that this galactic overlord named Xenu sent a bunch of disembodied aliens to the planet Earth 75 million years ago and destroyed them in volcanoes, but their spirits are still around, infesting all of us. So, I mean, literally, this is the core story of Scientology. That the reason that you can't speak in front of a group is because there's some alien creature in your brain tripping you up. The reason why you've got arthritis is that there are alien creatures in your joints. I mean, literally, this is what the religion is about. Is that you then go through this what's called auditing to get rid of what are called these engrams and satans, and these are the little aliens that are infesting you. Of course, they don't tell you they're alien creatures until, like I said, you're like $100,000 in. Jason Begay estimates that over 12 years, he gave them $1 million.
Jeez.
And this is a non-profit organization?
Yeah, and what is this whole thing about them wearing uniforms and parading around like admirals and stuff?
That's the Sea Org. Hubbard, you're right. L. Ron Hubbard was the guy that dreamed this all up in 1950 in his book Dianetics, and then once he realized that the taxes were high, made it a religion in 1954 overnight. And he loved sailing. In fact, they called him the Commodore, right? And one of the things he did in the 60s was he bought a boat and spent a lot of time sailing. Well, it was very romantic, but really what he was doing was avoiding tax collectors, all right? He'd go to one port for a while until the heat got him too much in that country, and then he'd go to another country. It was convenient to be on a boat. And over that time of spending so much time on the boat, he dreamed up this special, just really hardcore group called the Sea Org. The Sea Org are the people. I actually had a copy of this, okay? They sign billion-year contracts to be a part of the Sea Org.
Right.
Which means that lifetime after lifetime they will continue to serve Scientology. The Sea Org are the most hardcore, and the person with the highest rank in the Sea Org is named David Miscavige. He's this very short little man who runs the entire shebang. And they always try to tell the IRS that, well, this organization takes care of copyrights, and this organization takes care of this and that. We separate the for-profit book-selling part from it's all under David Miscavige's control, and it's all under the Sea Org's control.
I mean, how anybody can buy the idea that a guy who writes science fiction novels can come up with I'll tell you what this reminds me of. What it reminds me of is, the old stories, and I love these, about A.A. Allen, who was on all these border radio stations and also some stations in the United States, and had this big headquarters in Miracle Valley, Arizona, which is still there, by the way, and that the train station there got clogged because so many coffins started arriving because he claimed that he could revive the dead, and was taking these people's money. And this is what Scientology reminds me of. I mean, it's just like like a business scam.
Well, that's exactly what Time Magazine called it, a very famous story in 1990. They called it a ruthless global scam. Scientology sued them for $100 million. And that's what has made a lot of newspapers kind of shy about exposing Scientology. And what's really interesting to me is how much the tide has turned in the last couple of years. I mean, I started doing this 13 years ago, but believe me, there were journalists doing this for decades. And you really had to make sure you had you were working for a newspaper with some guts and with some good attorneys to do this kind of work. But in the last couple of years, I think Tom Cruise's behavior in particular has really got the tide turning, and people are like, what is this thing? And now newspapers are getting bolder about it. But then what's really interesting, in the last couple of months, have you heard about this anonymous movement?
No. Oh, yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, somebody sent me an email about that.
This is really fascinating because, for years there have been these people, these activists that have done what they could on the Internet and with protests to try to bring attention, but nobody pays attention.